Okay, so we will be waiting until, the time of class starts. So waiting until everyone joins in. Okay, so in the meantime, while everyone joins in, I just have a couple of questions for everyone, just to kind of, not related to class, just in general to see how everyone is feeling about the classes. So, how did you feel about the readings for today's class? Anyone have any strong feelings?
It's so hard.
Okay, so Jonghan, what was hard about them? So was there anything particular that you found, really difficult to understand, or anything that was, was it like the words? Was it the argument? Was it the ideas? What was it? You can write your opinion in the chat or like what was hard, but I'll ask other people. So did you all also think that the readings were difficult today, or how did you feel about them in general? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Were they difficult? Were they not difficult? Okay, so we're getting more people that are saying that the readings were, in fact, difficult. So there were three readings in total, and I'll leave the fun one for last. But which one did you find the most difficult? So we'll do emojis. Let's do emojis. So give me okay, give me a like a celebration emoji if you think the argument reading was difficult. Give me a surprised emoji if you think the diagram and the chart reading was difficult, and give me a laughing emoji for the Chonsei system reading. Okay, so we have one confused face, so that one is the charts. I also agree. That one was, yeah, that one was really tricky. And Kyuhyun, you found the one about the Chonsei system difficult. The charts one was difficult. And the one about arguments was difficult. Okay. Okay, so awesome. This gives me an idea on what I should be focusing on when I'm explaining, which is really good. Um, but yeah, I think today's class is gonna be I think I'm really excited for today's class because I mean, I don't know how the housing system works in Korea. Like I've lived in Seoul before, but I didn't have to like rent out an apartment. So it is kind of, I think, really new for me to like know how this works. So I was actually curious. Give me a thumbs up emoji if you've heard about the Chonsei system before, or you kind of know how it works before you did the reading. So thumbs up if you've heard of it before. Okay, so I'm seeing some thumbs up from Jung Hyuk and Jung Hwan. Okay. Okay, so we know how it works. This is good. So I will give you all just a little spoiler on what we're going to be doing today. In the very beginning of the class, I will be asking you to explain to me What is the Chauncey system? Because I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear your thoughts about what the system is, how it works, what's good about it, what's not good about it. So we'll talk about that in a second. For now, we will wait until everyone has a chance to join in. Actually, I think everyone in the class is here already, so we can get started on time, which is great. Okay, so I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. And for the very first part, we actually are going to start with a video. So let me just share my screen with audio on. So, as you all know from the readings, and as you all know from what you've seen so far, today's class, we're going to be talking about arguments, how to write proper arguments, and how to make arguments well. We'll be talking about what are the essential parts, what are the core components, what are the things that need to be in an argument for it to be good, and we're going to be analyzing some arguments. Additionally, we're going to be looking at something known as root cause analysis. So, and we're going to be applying those two ideas, writing arguments and root cause analysis, to looking at the housing crisis in South Korea to understand how we can look at an issue that is that big, that affects millions and millions of people, and how we can solve it, how we can find very small problems that will eventually lead to a full solution to the issue. So I will now go ahead and start sharing the video, and I will be silent so we can watch this together.
Newly married and wanting to own their own home in a city of escalating land prices, architect Choi Min-uk and his wife Jung Ah-young hit on a novel solution. Build a house that's narrow but tall.
At first, people were curious about what we were building. They thought it was either a chimney or a lighthouse.
With just one room per floor, it means a lot of stairs. But with the bottom floors being the living areas mostly for day use, and the top two more their personal space, climbing up and down is kept to a minimum.
I don't need to go like first floor to, the top floor. It's rarely happen. So I think it's quite okay.
Choi is now designing similar tiny homes for others, winning recognition from the city for his originality. It's a concept already established in neighbouring Japan, and it could provide a way for more young couples to own their own homes in Seoul, where the average apartment price has now risen to the equivalent of more than $800,000. As property prices surge, the mathematics of building small and tall become all the more persuasive. The land this house stands on costs just under $100,000. Spend another $150,000 on the house itself, and you have a home for less than a third of the price of a similarly sized apartment.
I think this could be a solution. It's very challenging for young people to buy a home, even if they save up for their entire lives.
And even in congested central Seoul, it's a way to secure your own individual space when distancing has taken on a new importance.
Especially during this COVID, nightmare, we thought it is very lucky for us to have this place because there is no noise. So it's a very calming place.
A small haven to call your own.
Okay, so I'll give everyone just kind of a few seconds to just think about the video that we just saw. And I have a few questions. So, the main video was talking about a solution strategy, or how this couple, this architect couple, solved a problem. So, what was the problem that they were trying to solve? So, why did they decide to build those houses? Why could they not buy, a house regularly or like a normal house? Can anyone tell me what the problem is? Okay, so I will pick on people. How about Kyuhyun? Can you tell me what the problem this couple is trying to solve? Like, what is the problem that they were facing?
I think the price of the amount of land is so expensive in Seoul, so they are to solve this, they are building the house upwards instead of um yeah, like they're building their houses upwards.
Exactly. So they're building their houses upwards, so vertically instead of horizontally, to be like taller and not wider. Exactly. So they're finding a way to use less land, but still have the same space. So, yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. So the main issue, the main problem is that housing is expensive. It's really hard to buy a house in Seoul. And a lot of people like who are like now wanting to move out and buy their own houses find it really, really difficult to buy a house because they're really, really expensive. So this is what the problem is. Houses are expensive and people can't afford them. And this is what's known as a housing crisis. As in, when I say crisis, I mean a really big issue that's affecting a lot of people, that people don't have the ability to buy houses when they should. And so, my main question is, how do we feel about this solution? Do we think it's a good solution to the problem, or do we not think it's a good solution to the problem? How about, let's see, Jiyeon, do you think it's a good solution, or do you think it's a bad solution?
Mm, I think it's good solution. Or it's efficient. So I think good solution.
No, and you use a really good word to describe it. You said it's efficient, as in you're using very little, like less money, and you're using less space to build more house or like more a bigger house. So it is efficient. You're using less for more. I like that you use that word, and yeah, no, I can see how you think it's a good solution. Thank you. And do we have people who think it's a bad solution? Do we have people who don't like this idea? Yes, Jong-hun, go ahead.
When a place is wide and wide, there has no stair, but this solution has so many stairs, so we'll be tired. But I think there no better solution than that, but there is better solution.
Okay, so now we're starting to really take in the lessons that we learned yesterday about ethical decision making, or like how does this affect people? And so, Jong-hoon gave us the example of like, it has a lot of stairs. So if someone is disabled or someone cannot really climb a lot of stairs, so for example, if you have someone that's old, someone that's 70 or 80 years old, having to live in this house, it will be very difficult to keep going upstairs. And so it would be really not possible for them to live in this kind of house. So that's one example of thinking about, who does this house work for? Who does it not work for? So thank you so much. That's a good example, Jung-hoon. So, does anyone else have any ideas about this? Anyone want to argue whether it's good or bad? Does anyone have opinions? Just in general, any opinion about this? Yes, Johnson, go ahead.
I think it is alternative alternative way to way because Korean house price is very expensive. So in Korean, this quote is available. If there is an we can pick there is any good and but there is evil and alternative evil. I think it is the situation like that because we can buy as a human we can live a house so to live. However, to because of the price expensive price of the house, we can live there. We can live there. So we uh so we built like a narrow space up there. I think, but it's efficient also.
I really like the way that you framed this by saying there's no good or bad. It's still going to be really expensive or like have to do a lot of things to kind of break out of it. And you said words like it's either evil or less evil, or like evil or lesser evil. I really like that framing in that it is still going to be really expensive. It is still going to be really difficult. And like housing should not have to, have this many kinds of problems to make sure that everyone has a house. I like that so much. That was a really, really good way of describing it. That was a really good framing strategy. So, thank you so much, everyone, for like, sharing your opinions. I think everything that you said is like genuinely really valid. And I think that especially when it comes to an issue this big, this is affecting tens of millions of people that live in Seoul. And there's really no one answer. There's just answers that work for different people. And just like John Sang said, there's evil and lesser evil. There's convenient housing and there's less convenient housing. So now that we know what the housing crisis is, now we see one solution and we can think about whether we like the solution or whether we don't like the solution. We can move on to the main introduction. Oh,
Newly married and
okay. Yeah. So today's session, we're going to keep working on the same four learning targets that we have been talking about so far, which are going to be algorithmic thinking. So basically focusing on, how do we solve problems in a structured way. This is where we're going to be talking about mostly like the diagrams and the charts. We're also going to be applying critical thinking to be able to write logical, good arguments and asking the right questions to know how we can kind of study these systems and study this housing crisis in a good way. What information do we need? What kind of people do we need to ask? And ethical decision making to make sure that any decision that we make or any solution that we make considers people. And we're thinking about the people that will actually live in these houses, the people that will live in Korea. So, the main targets, problem solving. And so we're going to be introducing problem solving today. Yes, that's a new one for today. So, problem solving is basically not just thinking about the problem and not just breaking it down into smaller steps like we've been doing so far, but today we're going to be really spending a lot of time in coming up with problem statements. So, for example, really being able to say, like, okay, this is the problem. So, just a one sentence that describes what the problem is, and coming up with a solution. So, today we're going to be focusing specifically on solving problems and writing arguments that can convince other people that your solution is a good solution. So, how do I solve a problem? How do I convince people that this is actually a good solution? And so, before we go to the glossary, actually, I, yeah, actually, no, wait, we can do this after the glossary. So, let me just quickly open up the document for the glossary. It should be here. Yes. So we can go ahead and spend some time here. So again, thank you so much, everyone. I see that there's been a lot of new words added into the glossary, and they're the words from span all the way until tenant. So there's a lot of new words. So before I talk about these, just spend the next 2 to 3 minutes reading through each one of the terms and understanding them. And if you have any questions, just ask me. But when you're done reading, just give me a thumbs up emoji and we can continue with the session. So, just 2 to 3 minutes to read through the definitions in the glossary. Oh, and also let me send over the link in the chat just so you can easily find it. Okay, so just waiting on some checks and X's. Oh, sorry, the thumbs up to make sure that everyone has had the chance to read through the new terms. Okay, so I'm starting to see a lot of checks and a lot of thumbs up. But yes, so again, this glossary is here to help you keep track of the new words that you learned. I think that all of these terms are absolutely essential. You have a lot of words that are kind of more related to writing and writing style. So, for example, I see the words in lieu of, which is sometimes like sometimes people say that in like to write instead of. So these are more like style. But then you also have a lot of technical terms related to housing, so mortgage, tenant, and things like that that are easy to like easy to find difficulty with because they're very specific, right? So I feel like especially talking about mortgages and banks and interest rates is really difficult when you still don't have to deal with banks that much. But I will try my best to make sure that we all understand what an interest rate is or what banks do in general. We'll get there. But for now, let's go ahead and go to these slides again. And now we are going to have a prep poll. So this prep poll is going to rely on a few things. So the prep poll asks, what do you think is the most significant factor contributing to South Korea's housing affordability crisis? So why do you think houses are expensive in South Korea? So for this, you can give me answers from the readings. So you have the readings related to the Chonsei system. You can give me an answer from the video, or you can give me an example from your own personal experience. So based on what you know, why do you think houses are so expensive in Seoul? So I will accept answers from any of those. But for now, let me go ahead and get the poll started. It should be this one. Okay, so you should all have access to the poll. Give me a quick second to just open up a 5-minute timer. And your 5 minutes start now. Okay, so about 3 minutes left for the poll. Okay, so about 1.5 minutes left. Okay, so about 30 seconds left, so make sure that you submit what you have right now. Okay, so the 5 minutes are up, so just make sure to submit what you have so I can also see it. Just waiting on a couple more people to submit. Okay, and we're done. And now I will share your results with you. So you should be able to see the answers that you gave. I think there is a lot of really, really interesting um, answers here. And I think, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for also like putting in your own opinions into this. It really shows that you know exactly what's happening, which is really nice. Um, so, let me see. Yes. So, Hajin, what do you think is one of the reasons that South Korea is having a housing crisis?
I think South Korea's housing crisis is happening because it is safer compared to stocks, etc. And the price of the house keeps going up, so people are interested in buying a house. So the number of houses is limited, but there are many people who want to buy it.
Exactly. So, th what you're talking about is something in economics known as supply versus demand. A lot of people want to buy houses because they make good money and good investments, but there aren't that many houses. So the more people buy, the less houses there are, the more expensive they will be. That's a really good way of thinking about this and thinking about houses not just as places where people live, but when you think of cases where you have landlords who buy a lot of houses, They're an investment. They're something like a stock. When you buy a house, it's just gonna, keep increasing in price so you can sell it in 10 years. Um, so yeah, no, thank you so much. That's a really good idea. And so, how about Hyun? You also gave another really interesting answer. Can you share your response?
I think the excessive concentration of infrastructures on major cities like Seoul is the most significant factor. There are houses affordable for social beginners at countryside, but most of important companies, government office, or hospitals are in major cities. So houses at the country are affordable but not livable.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why this happens in every capital city across the world, where you have a lot of people from, the countryside move towards the capital because there's more opportunities for work, there's better education, there's better universities, there's better healthcare. And so people want to move to big cities because they have more infrastructure, but there's smaller land. And so houses will end up being really cheap in the countryside where you have less infrastructure, but more expensive in bigger cities, which is, very similar to what Hajin said of like, okay, lots of people want houses, but there aren't enough houses. And so, and then there's also a lot of other ideas mentioned here. So there's a lot of people who mentioned something like population density. So the area of the land is really small, but there's a lot of people that live there. And then there's also the idea of, the Chauncey system and how it's being used in the way that it's being used now. So, thank you so much, everyone. All of your answers were really, really well done, I think. And yeah, I think I'm really, really excited to see how you're going to be solving these problems in the breakouts. I think this is going to be like our most interesting class yet because you get to use the tools that you've learned in the past few days and apply them to a problem that you're familiar with and a problem that affects you directly. So it's going to be really fun. So, we are now going to move towards an activity. And before we go into the activity, I have one thing that I wanted to share. Um, Actually, two things I wanted to do. So the first thing is, again, consider me the beginner here. I would like to hear your voices. So can someone explain to me what is the Chauncey system? Just very briefly. You don't have to, talk about the reading, but how do you understand it? Any volunteers? Okay, I will pick on someone. So, Hyunjun, can you tell me what the Chauncey system is? Just explain it in your own words.
Uh, I think that is so difficult, so I have no idea.
No worries. I understand that it's really difficult because there's a lot of really difficult words and ideas to talk about. But yes, Jung Hyuk, go ahead.
Uh, in my understanding, I think is giving a amount of money just in once to the landlords, not giving a payment like a week or a month, just in once. And when the mortgage is finished, then we get a little money back, payback from the landlords, I think.
Yeah, so it's if you think about it, it's basically paying a lot of money and then not paying rent for a few years, and then you get the money back at the end. So the reason why this is a good idea, or it was a good idea at some point in the 60s, but it's no longer a good idea, is because interest rates are very low. And it's easier for someone to go to a bank to get a loan to be able to, rent an apartment than it is for a landlord to come and go to the bank, take a loan, and buy a house. So there is differences, and so landlords then, like people made this system, so landlords can then kind of get a lot of loans from the people and not from the banks. And so a lot of interesting things end up happening because of the system. Um, and like a lot of people talk about how the system, when interest rates start going up, which is something that's happening all across the world, it starts being not feasible or like starts, becoming weaker. So we'll be talking a lot about this system today, and that's why I asked you all to give me some ideas on what it means. But before I talk a little bit more about Chonsei, I want to explain what we're going to be doing in the breakouts. So today we are going to go into breakouts to apply the third reading about graphs, diagrams, and charts to our understanding of the housing crisis. So, before I do that, I wanted to give some ideas on the three models that we will be using. So, groups one and two are going to be using, wait, let me just double check this. Yeah, so groups one and two are going to be using the five whys. Groups four and five are going to be using the Ishikawa fishbone diagram. And group seven is going to be using the Pareto chart. I know that the reading didn't explain them really well, so I will give you some examples before we go into breakouts. So so before we talk about the specific models, it's important to understand why we're doing this. So the name of the models is root cause diagrams or root cause analysis. So when you have a really big problem, these problems have a lot of things that cause them. So, for example, in the like housing crisis, you have everything from the economy, both, South Korea's economy, the global economy. You have banks that are responsible. You have individual people. You have the government. You have a lot of things that really melt together to make a really big and difficult problem. So when we're doing a root cause analysis, we're trying to really understand what is really causing the problem. So instead of just saying something like, oh, this big problem is caused by this one thing, it never is. The problems are caused by a lot of things, and these help us understand what are the different causes for something. So the five whys, so for groups one and two, the five whys is one of the easiest and the one that everyone uses because it's very simple. And the five whys is it's in the name. You look at the problem. So the problem is young professionals are having a hard time buying houses in Seoul. So you ask yourself why, and then you answer that. And then you ask yourself why again. And so you answer that. And then you ask yourself why again. So you ask yourself why five times, and every time you find an answer, you keep going down. And this way you keep going like and trying to find the root cause. The fishbone diagram and the Pareto chart are a little more complicated, so I have some examples here that we can look at. So the fishbone diagram, you start with the problem here at the right. So this example shows you, so you're going out to take photos with a camera and you ended up with a blurry photo. And so that's the problem. It's here in the right in gray. And so you split it into four causes. So process, maybe you're the problem. Like maybe it's how you took the picture that's a problem. Maybe it's the equipment. Maybe it's the environment. Maybe it's the user. And then you keep adding branches. So, for example, if the issue is with the environment, maybe it's too dark. Maybe the person you're trying to take a photo of moved too quickly. So, you take a problem, you split it into sub-problems, and then you split those sub-problems into sub-problems. It's kind of like a tree diagram. So, I know it's a little confusing, but we'll get some practice with it. And then the Pareto chart, I feel like looks really scary, but the idea behind it is kind of really silly. In that, so a Pareto chart tells us that a big problem has a lot of causes. Some causes are more important than others. So, for example, um, when if you're looking at the housing crisis, right? You would say that one of the biggest issues, for example, is infrastructure. One of the biggest issues is a lot of people want to live in Seoul, but there's not enough houses. That's a really big and important part of it. Meanwhile, a smaller part is maybe houses in this neighborhood are really good because there's a really good cafe, and that's why houses are expensive because cafes in Seoul are really good. That could be a part of the reason, but it's maybe like 1% or like 0.1%. So Pareto charts basically tell you that, okay, so you have really big and important causes and less important causes. So a Pareto chart just tells you, okay, so take a problem, find some causes on why it's a problem, and then just rank them based on what's more important or what's a bigger issue. So, do these all make some sense now? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, so now that we understand how to do these, let's go back into the main point of class, and I'm going to quickly share the links for the breakouts. So the group numbers are a little weird, I know, but it's mostly because of how I set up the breakouts before. So let me just quickly send over the links. So, okay. And again, remember that your names are going to be at the top of the document. So just make sure that if the document has your name on it, then you're in the right group. If the document does not have your name on it, let me know and I'll make sure that you're in the right group. And the last one. Okay, so here are the links. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakouts now, and I will see you all on the other side. Good luck, everyone. Gian, I just noticed that you're not assigned a group. 1 second. Let me add you to group 4. Okay, and in now that the groups are in breakouts, we can kind of take a look at more or less what they're doing. So I will be sharing the breakout documents once I get rid of the presentation. Okay. Okay, and just for context, the breakout instructions are trying to find solutions or analyzing the housing crisis problem by utilizing the different root cause analysis diagrams. So again, groups 1 and 2 have to use the 5 whys. Groups 4 and 5 have to use the Ishikawa fishbone diagram. And finally, group 7 has to be working with the Pareto charts. We'll just leave the groups to work on this for around 5 minutes before going in and asking for question and making sure that everyone's on the right track. Okay, so now everyone should be coming back into the main room. Okay, and welcome back, everyone. So I am very happy with your progress. So I think so far, like one thing that I need to say is that this breakout has had so much more like activity so far. So one thing to celebrate, you guys are getting used to writing down in breakouts, like writing down your thoughts. This is really good. I think every single group understood exactly what their model is and how to use it, which is incredible. I'm gonna give everyone confetti. So let's just celebrate this moment. You guys are doing a great job. So, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. So, groups one or two. I need a volunteer, so either group one or group two to share your work for the five whys. So who wants to share from groups one or two? I see Junsang raising your hand, so that's group two. So I will share my screen to show group two's work, and Junsang, you can present.
Before the take, oh, I will explain this to this. We thought that the problem of the real estate is because at first is in economical perspective because the demand for real estate is bigger than the supply. Because of that, the price of the real estate is rising. And we find a second why, because there are less alternatives as miners to invest. And why? And because the interest rate of risk-free asset is low to protect their asset from inflation. Uh, uh, what kind of risk-free asset is the like offer the money to bank and get interest from the bank. In Korea, that rate is very low because of the very low. Then why? Because Korean domestic economic growth is less faster than before. If our economic growth is faster, and we can grow 20%, and we will get 10. We will lend the money from the bank at 10% rate, and then we can get, if we grows 20%, we give 10% of interest from to bank, and we get 10%. We get 10% rate in 10% price. However, we cannot do that because there are fewer kind of factors to develop anymore, because we have low population, low birth rate, and dependence of exports. And I think it's the best principle that the decreasing of the globalization is the factors of lower growth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So basically, you started from a problem related to the supply and demand, and then you took that problem and you broke it down to find the exact root cause, and then you ended up with kind of this, the slowing down of the economy due to like birth rate, due to dependence on export and like the domestic economy. And you found a very like important root problem, something that you can actually focus on and something you can solve. Good. Thank you for that, group two. So anyone from groups one or two, can you tell me um, how did you find the five whys method? Did you think it was useful? And why was it useful? So anyone from groups one or two can raise their hand and talk. Yeah, Junsan.
I think it is not useful because I think the five whys is useful when we need to find that one cause. However, in estate problem, there is lots of factors that make this problem. So in another, so we have to find problems in each other, but in five whys, we should find one problem. And I think this not match and take not balance. so it is not useful.
So I agree perfectly, and you actually stole my answer again. This is great. I would say that it's not that it's not useful, it's just it's useful for one specific thing. So with the other diagrams, which we'll see the other groups present, you look at multiple different causes, and then you kind of break those down. And so you're focusing on more than one issue. With root cause anal with five whys, you're taking one specific issue and going really, really, really deep in understanding it. So if you are looking for example, you're just now understanding a problem and you're just, trying to understand the different causes, you would not use five whys. But if you know already what specific issue you want to focus on and like what path you want to take, you would use the five whys because it would give you a lot of detail for one specific cause. But no, you're absolutely right. In the five whys only focuses on one cause, but something like the fishbone diagram, as we'll see in works of groups 4 and 5, you have multiple causes that you can investigate. So you end up with more possibilities. So thank you so much for that, Jinsang in group 2. So, group 4 or group 5, which one of you wants to share your work with the class? Go ahead, Gian.
We analyzed the problem using fishbone diagram. 1. Environmental population density of major cities. Differences in the amount of installed infrastructure. Much more chance of job selecting. Lack of development in other cities. Second, economical, high house prices, soaring interest rate. 3. Administrative, lose point of 전세 system like 전세 fraud, reverse qualities of education depending on area. So our solution and our solve problem is population density of major cities. So our solution is increasing benefits like job support, land support. So outside the major cities area, and building infrastructures outside the metropolitan area.
Thank you so much for that, group 4. That is a really, really well done analysis. And also you provided some really good solutions. We'll talk about that. I love this so much. But the first thing is, can someone from group 4 and 5 tell me what were the benefits of using a fishbone diagram? How do you feel like it helped? So anyone from groups 4 and 5 can share. Junghyuk, go ahead.
As Junsang said, this problem is made by many factors that affected to this result. So I think fishbone method was fully enough to find out the factors that affect to that.
Exactly. So when you're just now exploring a problem, you're trying to look at all the possible things that can cause this problem. The fishbone diagram is really helpful because you can break a problem down like group 4 did into, okay, so the environment helps, the administrative side helps, the economical side helps, and all these like different things. And then picking one of them and just looking at some kind of issues. And then group 4 did an extra step of picking one smaller problem and like, okay, so definitely population density is causing this problem a lot, especially in some, like a city like Seoul. So here's how we can fix it. Make other cities good enough to live in, and then you'll have a lot less pressure on Seoul or like the bigger cities. Yeah, exactly. So you showed exactly how you can use these. So fishbone diagrams give you a more um, big picture view than the five whys. Okay. And finally, we only have group seven. So group seven, you have to share, unfortunately. So, um, can someone from group seven share your work with the Pareto chart? Yes, go ahead, Junghwan. I think you're muted. Yes.
We determine the importance of this situation. The first, increasement of the population in urban, and second, consisting urbanization, and third, property speculation, and for inflation, and fifth, no money, and sixth, congestion of the infrastructure, and seventh, increasement of the interest rate, and eighth, emergency material. So we make a part chart about it, but we don't have a skill to express graph of consist of right, so we can't until this.
Exactly. So you guys did a really good job of showing exactly what a Pareto chart is supposed to look like. So you take a problem, you break it down into smaller issues, and then you try to rank them. So what's the most important subproblem versus what's the least important subproblem? So I think, Junghwan, you mentioned exactly why Pareto charts are sometimes difficult to use in an issue like this, in that but which one of these problems is more important than the other? And how do I put this into numbers? It's really difficult. So for example, as someone that doesn't live in, South Korea right now, I don't know which one of these issues is more important. I think you guys would know more than I would, but for example, I think that, inflation is just as important as, an increasing size in the population. And so it kind of is difficult to say what's the most important, what's not the most important. So Pareto charts work best for situations where you have numbers, you have data, you have something you can say like, okay, 80% of the problem is caused by this, 10% of the problem is caused by this. In this case, it's a lot harder to use them. But if you have data and if you have numbers, Pareto charts are really, really good and important. So, you guys did an absolutely incredible job in the breakouts. I'm genuinely so happy to see this much engagement. You all gave, really good examples, really good understanding of each of the models, and it makes me very happy. I can now be very confident that you all understand how to use these root cause analysis methods. But one thing that I want to add is that when you are analyzing a problem for research or for a project, you don't just use one of these tools, you use multiple of these tools. So looking at these three specific examples, for like you're just now looking at a problem for the first time. Okay, you look at a fishbone diagram, just like, hey, I don't know what's happening. Let me write down all the possible causes. And when you have a fishbone, you can then use the five whys to pick one problem and go deeper into that one specific problem. And then you go out, you gather data, you get numbers, you put in a Pareto chart, and then you figure out, okay, so this is in fact the most important problem. So you don't just use one of these tools, you use them together to understand the problem in much, 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 much more detailed ways and understand how you can pick a subproblem that you can solve. So awesome. You guys are doing a great job. And as a reward for doing a great job, first we're gonna have some confetti. So congratulations, everyone. And then the second thing we're gonna do is have a 2-minute IRS break. So I'm gonna open up the timer for 2 minutes, and you can get up, stretch, you can turn off your camera, and just spend some time away from your screen. Okay, so the 2 minutes are up, so we should all be coming back into. um, If I don't stop the timer at just the right time, it has this really weird sound that it plays that I think is really funny. But anyway, okay, everyone is coming back into the session now, and we'll wait until I see all the cameras on again before we go to our second activity. This one is going to be really fun. I mean, at least it's really fun for me as someone with a background in math and logic and arguments. But let's go ahead and stop talking about root cause analysis and diagrams and start talking about arguments. We're gonna fight, which is great. I love fighting. So we're gonna now start our activity on argumentation. So before we get started with the activity, just as a quick note to explain what each of these words means. So for every argument is composed of 5 parts, or like 4 parts. The parts are claim, reason, support, and warrants. So a claim is a clearly stated position. So for example, um, a claim would be to say, coffee is good for your health. That's a claim, right? You're saying something that could be true or false. A reason is an answer why that claim is true. So for example, I could say, coffee is good for your health because it makes me happy. See, that's a reason. Support is when you come up with evidence or data or examples to justify your argument. And warrants is assumptions for the claim to be true. So, for example, warrants is the hardest one to kind of think about. But I would say that the easiest way to think about a warrant is, why are you making this claim? Or like, why is it important for you to make this claim? We'll get some more detail about that in a bit, but let's look at an example. So our example is, exercise is good for your health because it strengthens the heart. So it has a main claim, which is exercise is good for your health. It has a reason, so it strengthens the heart. It has support. So the argument itself doesn't have support, but you can easily find support for it. And its studies show that regular exercise reduces the risk of heart disease. And warrants is a strong heart is important for overall health. So I'm making this argument because having a good heart is really good for you. You have less issues and your life will be much more fun if you don't have, you know, problems with your health or with your body. So now we're going to start the main activity. But before we do, does anyone have any questions about any of these ideas? Does everything make sense? Give me thumbs up if it does. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, good. We now know what an argument is. So let's look at some arguments and let's fight about them. So, argument number 1. The government should stop regulating the housing market because regulations always make things worse. Is this a good argument or is this a bad argument? Is it strong or weak? So give me a check if you think it's good, or give me an X if you think it's bad. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of people agreeing. So it seems that almost everyone thinks that this is, ooh, we have people who change their opinion. Okay, so this is gonna be yeah, Sungyun versus the world. So Sungyun, actually, why do you think this is a strong argument?
Um, I think this argument is not strong.
Okay. That was a trap for me. But yeah, no. So why don't you think it's strong? Why do you think it's weak? Can you give me?
Because um, should need uh, the the regulation. If the regu
Okay, so
um,
can you think of one reason why people need regulations or why regulations are good sometimes?
I don't know where.
Okay, thank you so much. And also, guys, remember always saying I don't know is completely okay and it should be encouraged. We're not supposed to know everything. So thank you so much for that, Sunyan. So yes, you said that it's a weak argument. It seems that everyone in the class agrees with you. Uh, so that should tell you that you're on the right track, I think. Consensus is a good thing. Can someone tell me why this argument is weak? Since everyone agrees, I think I can take volunteers. Jung-hyuk, go ahead.
I think it's because the its evidence I, it's because it has a weak point of its evidence because the opposite side of people can attack this always, the word always. So I think it is the weak argument because
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
not all the
No.
regulation make things worse, but it could be.
Okay, you spotted the two core points that I was gonna say. The first thing is there's no evidence at all. It's just someone came up and says all regulations are bad. Trust me. I'm saying the right thing. I don't have any evidence, but trust me. So there's the statement itself has no evidence. There's no support. It's a really big claim by saying all regulations are bad. And then it's also a logical fallacy. It's a logical fallacy called a hasty generalization, which basically means by saying, okay, regulations are bad, this one regulation is bad, therefore all regulations are bad, and the government is bad, and then you keep going up and up. But yeah, no, so there's no evidence. The person who made this claim is not justifying anything. They're just saying regulations are bad and all regulations are bad. And it's saying that regulations always make things worse, which is not true because, regulations are there to protect people from exploitation. They're there to protect people and make sure that they have access to housing and social security and sometimes really good things. So let's look at the second argument. So housing prices in Korea are high because people keep investing in real estate instead of other industries. Is this a strong argument or a weak argument? Okay, so then you're saying that this is a strong argument. Can you explain why?
Um, I think this argument is weak because there is just claims, but there is no evidence or examples. So I think so.
Okay, so we're seeing one opinion on why it's a weak argument. And yeah, so Solin, you said you have a checkup. Why do you think it's strong?
Also, house is one of the real estate. So, um, so, and the bank interest rate is kind of low in Korea right now, so they wanted to get more interest rates, so they are keep investing in house or some of the real estates.
So you're saying you agree with the argument. Okay, so we have agreement. And Jung-hyuk, can you tell me why you think it's a strong argument?
Because in my opinion, this evidence is quite possible to support this argument. Saying housing prices in Korea are high. There are very many factors of this result, but this evidence can be the one of them. I think it's strong enough.
Okay, so we're seeing some more ideas coming up. And how about Minsu? You're saying that it's weak. Can you explain why?
I think this reason is that really keep investing in real estate instead of for other industries.
Oh, can you tell me why you think that is a weak argument?
I don't know.
Of course, that's completely okay. No worries. And let's just get one more for weak. So how about Kyuhyun? Why do you think it's weak?
Um, I think there are various causes for housing prices. And this argument could be one of them. But I think the other cause could be more important cause of the housing prices. So I think it's a little bit weak.
Okay, okay. So we're getting a really, really good viewpoint here. And I also saw a lot of people like switching from X's to checks, from checks to X's. This is good. This is how a good argument goes because we have people who state their opinion and people just being like, oh, wait, I agree with that. So they change their opinion. You guys are doing a great job. I love this class. So I agree with actually both of you guys. So I agree that it's a weak argument because, as Yu Sung said, there's still no examples, there's no data, there's no evidence. It's just a statement. For it to be an argument, you need evidence. I also agree with Kyuhyun is that it's very simple. So it only gives one reason, as opposed and saying that like this is the reason why real estate is this is the reason why housing prices is high. This is and you kind of if you're only reading this sentence, you sometimes feel like this is the only reason. So it feels really simple. So I agree with both Yusung and Kyuhyun, but I also agree with Solin and Junghyuk by saying that okay, this is like as Solin said and Junghyuk said, the main warrant, the main beginning is true. Housing prices are high. So it's starting from a correct position. And if you add evidence to this argument, it will become a really good one. And you can also so to make this argument a strong one, you need to add evidence. And you also need to add in one of the reasons why housing prices is high is because of this. So we're workshopping arguments. You guys are doing a great job. But luckily, I have more. So argument number 3. So the Chonsei system takes up too much money from renters, making it harder for them to be able to buy homes. Changing Chonsei could make houses more affordable. Do you think this is a strong argument or a weak argument? It's okay if you all take some time to think. I think this one is really tricky. But let's start with some friendly debate to make sure that the rest of the class gets some extra time to form their opinions. So, Jun-sang, you think it's strong. Why?
I think I think it's strong. I think that this argument is strong because at first it gave us some proposition that everyone else agrees. That is, Johnson system takes up too much money from renters. I think everyone in here classroom agrees on this proposition. And changing to to overcome that, uh, changing Johnson policy is one of the manner to make houses more affordable. So I think it's a strong argument, yes.
Okay, so you're saying that it starts from a correct place and it kind of gets a lot of general agreement. And so, Hyun, you're giving an X. So why do you think it's a weak argument?
I think the first sentence could be true, but the second sentence is wrong because I think changing Jeonse could not make houses more affordable because it has no evidence that changing Jeonse could make house more affordable right now.
Okay, okay. Okay, I like that. I like that. You're looking at the structure and saying like, okay, the first sentence is true, but it does not necessarily mean the second is. This is going in a really good direction. G1, you also think it's weak. Why?
Because like no specific solution has been prepared for the evidence. He or she is arguing that uh Jeonse system is bad and Jeonse system should be changed, but there are no solutions of this problem.
Okay, so you're saying that it also needs to kind of think about other ways of like having something for it to be a good argument. That's a really good way of thinking about it. And let's see, Yunho, you're also saying it's a strong argument. Can you tell me why?
Because it says negative parts of 전세 system first, and in the next sentence, so there is a solution that changing 전세 could make better. And I think in this argument, there is no contextual awkwardness. So I think it's strong argument.
Contextual awkwardness. I love that term. Thank you so much for that, Yunho. That was a really good argument. And before I reveal my opinions and bring up a conclusion, Junghyuk, you have a weird emoji up. What is that? Is that a skip or what is it?
Uh, I think it depends on because the changing chance could make houses more affordable. This sentence is uh not specific. If the following changes, the suggestion of changing was here, then I would say it is strong. But there isn't, so I'm a little confusing.
Okay, okay. I like that. I like that a lot. And so just to kind of bring everything together, so I think that we have a lot of ideas coming from basically just thinking about thinking about an argument and where, like, whether it should give us solutions or not, or basically the connection of the first sentence to the second, or thinking about how much people agree with it or not agree with it. And all of these are really important. I used to think it's strong, but now you guys make me consider that it might be also like a little weak, but also I do agree with Jungkook. It depends on where it's being placed. I think that, so a lot of ideas. And I think So Hyun said that like, okay, like, but there's other things happening, not just Chonsei, that would make houses really expensive. So maybe not. And the argument kind of, has it could make houses more affordable. So it's kind of just saying like, okay, maybe if we do this, it'll do that. It's not giving, it doesn't, like have weight to it, I feel like. But no, I do agree that this has some evidence, it has logical structure, and it has a conclusion, but it needs a little bit more to make it a stronger argument. Is it weak? No. Is it strong? It's getting there. It's definitely getting there. But yeah, the final one before we wrap up. If the government builds more apartments, the housing crisis will disappear. Is this a strong argument or a weak argument? Okay, so let's pick on people. So it's Jung-hoon versus the world. So you're the only one with a check. So why do you think it's a strong argument?
The housing crisis happens when the house people many people want houses, but uh, little houses. Then the house crisis. So the housing crisis is going on up here, but when government builds more apartments, a lot of people can buy houses, so the housing crisis will disappear a little bit.
So you're looking at the idea of it from like, supply and demand of like, okay, so people are having trouble finding houses, so adding more houses will fix the problem. So you think it's a strong argument. And what about Seek? You said that it's a weak argument. Can you explain why?
I think the number of apartments does not matter. Does not matter. Because many people want to live in area where infrastructure developed and like capital city Seoul. So uh, yes, the number of apartments does not matter.
Okay. Okay. So we have a really good counter argument here that says like, you know, there are a lot of empty and free houses that have no people living in them because just some people want to buy houses. So it's not the number of houses, it's how they're distributed, for example. That's a really good argument, and basically like what they have access to, and yeah, that's a really good counter argument. I agree with the overwhelming majority of this class. This argument is a little weak because it gives no evidence and it only focuses on one issue that's not the full story. So the same with the other arguments that we saw. Ooh, oh no, I spoiled the poll. But yeah, like the other arguments that we saw of like, it's just kind of saying that something like, okay, um, the regulations are always bad, or like housing prices are bad because only of this. So it will make the housing crisis less. It will make like improve, but it won't make it disappear. When you say something like it'll make it disappear, that means this is the only possible issue for this. Okay, so now we have looked at arguments. We know exactly how to spot a good argument and a strong or a weak argument. So thank you so much, everyone. This was a really, really dynamic class. You guys were really putting in a lot of your effort into it. This made me very happy. You guys know exactly how to argue and how to spot a good argument or a bad or a weak argument. So congratulations. And with that, we will conclude with a reflection poll that shows me how you can argue. Should the Chonsei system be changed to make houses more affordable? Why or why not? Formulate your response as an argument. So give me a claim, reasoning, evidence, and your assumptions or your warrant. So I will go ahead and give everyone the poll. It should be this one. Yes, okay. So you should all have access to the poll now. Let me just quickly open up my timer so that you have access to the 5 minutes. And your 5 minutes start now. Okay, and we have 3 minutes left for the poll. So we have about a minute left. Your arguments should not be completely perfect. It's okay if they're not, 100% perfect. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, about 45 seconds. So about 10 seconds left. Just make sure that you submit whatever you have now. And just waiting on a few more people to submit their answers. Okay, just a few more people still need to submit. And okay, I can go ahead and end the poll now. And I don't think anyone would be surprised if I said that the answer to this is it depends. So we have a lot of arguments here. I can see like the responses to the reflection poll, a lot of responses that say yes, a lot of responses that say no, a lot of responses that say yes if or no but or like changing kind of the system. So there's a lot of, discussion on like how this can happen. And I genuinely love it. I think that we don't really have the time for like the remaining of the session to have like a proper debate or discussion about this. But I feel like if you guys were to like actually sit down and talk to each other about it, it's gonna be really fun. But um just kind of like thinking about these ideas of like, yes, it should be changed and no, it shouldn't be changed. Let me just quickly go over some of these responses and try to think of, yeah, so how about Yunho? You said that it should not be changed. Can you share your answer?
Can you um, give my answers to? Thank you. I think the 전세 system should not be changed to make houses more affordable because there could be some positive part of 전세, and in Korean house affordable crisis, there is many factors or reasons of this crisis. So just changing 전세 system would not help solving this problem.
Yeah, so thinking about it in terms of like, this is not the only thing that needs to change, and there are lots of other things that need to change too. I like that way of thinking. I think it definitely like kind of adds a lot of detail and makes us think about other things that also need to happen. But yeah, maybe it has a lot of beneficial parts for like some people, and so maybe it still has some use. G1, you said that it should be changed. Can you share why?
The transit system should be changed to make houses more affordable because there are many people who are suffering from criminals related to transit, like transit fraud. For example, there was a case that a young man killed himself because of the shock of transit fraud. So I think the government should reinforce the law about transit fraud and should increase the rental housing system too.
Okay, so you end up with like the Chauncey system being able, like allowing a lot of kinds of new kinds of crimes. It needs to be a lot of kind of regulation around. And so that's one of those things where you think that this is making it a little bit worse for people, so maybe it should be changed. And then you have so many answers here that are like, maybe or like it should be kept but like changed for like more like regulations, and some people who said that it should be removed but something else should come in its place. So many different arguments, and I really wish I had like 45 more minutes in this class to go over all the arguments that you guys gave. They're incredible. So thank you so much everyone for today's class. Before we finish, I just have a couple of things to say. The first thing is picking on people to give me a summary. So how about Hyun? Can you tell me one thing that you learned in today's class?
I learned that there are various tools to describe and solve a problem, like a Pareto graph or that that fishbone like graph. Like
Exactly. So there are lots of ways to describe and lots of ways to like analyze a problem. And then there's also the things about arguments that we all already learned. So thank you so much, everyone. And one last thing. just to kind of give you a little spoiler before we go to office hours in a few hours, this is the collaboratory for today. You are going to be picking one of the problems, housing affordability is one of them, and doing a lot of research to figure out the causes for the problem, doing your own analysis, whether it's the five whys, the fishbone, Pareto, or another tool, and building an argument. So you get to do a lot of what we did today, but in a lot more detail. And based on how this session went today, I am so excited to look over your work for the collaboratories. But another important thing to say is I sent out the grades for the first collaboratory. Or like not really grades. It was just a comment. There were no grades for the first one. And yeah, so I think that you all did a really, really good job. The way that my feedback works is I will never tell you that you did anything wrong. I don't believe in right or wrong. I will tell you that you did this thing well, and this is one thing that needs to be improved. So that's another thing to think about. I will be sending out the feedback for the second collaboratory today, so make sure to keep your eyes peeled, and you'll be getting the grades for that today. So, thank you so much everyone for today's class. I really enjoyed all of your arguments. You guys were on fire today. You guys really showed up and really put in a lot of time and effort and thought and really paid attention. It makes me very happy. So have some more confetti. So thank you so much everyone, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow before the weekend. Bye everyone.
Thank you so much.